Yeah.
What the what?
What's going on, Jimmy?
What is going on? What are you wearing?
Just getting back from a bike ride, safety, helmet, pads. If I fall, I'm good to go.
That's not how that works.
What do you mean, Jimmy?
There are better ways to stay safe and comfortable.
Well, good thing we're going to talk about that on tonight's episode. Welcome to Learning with Alisha. I'm Alisha Zellner, and I'm the founder of Bike Ride for Black Lives. And tonight, we're going to be focusing on things you can do to keep yourself safe while riding the bike, and also some things you need to know while you're out there on the road. If you've missed any of the previous episodes for Learning with Alisha, you can find them on the Instagram page at Bike Ride for Black Lives. Jimmy?
Yep. So a couple things we're going to start with today. Bike helmets. If you noticed, Alisha had on a rather burly helmet today. Bike helmets are designed to be nice and lightweight, aerodynamic, and also cooling. Keep your head comfortable, help move that sweat away from you so that you stay comfortable. This particular helmet is a road helmet. It does not have a visor on the front, but has a nice aerodynamic shape and a couple other safety features to it, such as the wave cell material on the inside. That's something that's exclusive to Bontrager, designed to allow the helmet to take a bigger impact and minimize your risk of concussion. Helmets are not required by law, but definitely a very good common sense item to have. Helmets do come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. I would encourage you to try on different models, see which one fits you best. A good helmet should feel comfortable, secure, and snug without being constricting.
So I don't need a face mask.
Don't need a face mask.
Roger that.
Unless you're going to do some crazy downhill riding, but there's a bike helmet for that too.
Okay.
Yep. Other thing I noticed, your bike, you do have a front light, you don't have a rear light, and that's okay. We have one here. Front and rear lights, these particular ones are a Bontrager Ion front and rear lights. 1300 lumen front light, lightweight, very, very bright. These are daytime running lights. That means while you're out on the road during the daytime, these are visible in broad daylight, full sun. At nighttime, they light the road up perfectly. Keeps you visible. Similar to daytime running lights on a car, it makes your vehicle more visible. It makes your bike, which is a vehicle, more visible. Keeps you safe.
Okay.
White on the front, red in the back.
Oh, kind of like a car.
Just like a car.
Got it.
Yep. And another thing we do recommend for folks, especially on a new bike, if you're going to be riding, city paths and parks where there are going to be other pedestrians around, we do recommend a bell.
A bell? It's a donut.
This particular bell is a donut. People will hear you coming. It's kind of a good tool to make yourself visible to folks that are on the path. Make yourself known. That way you're not creeping up, you're not buzzing by anybody, you're not yelling, hey, on your left, and somebody steps out in front of you. Ring that doorbell, so to speak, let them know you're coming.
That literally sounds like a doorbell.
Like a doorbell. Yep.
I love it.
We have these in a wide variety of shapes and sizes as well. We've got donuts, we've got cool little kitties.
You have Rubik's Cubes, I've seen them.
Rubik's Cubes, skulls, beer mugs, margaritas, whatever you're into.
Got it.
Find a bell that fits your personality.
Okay.
Yep.
Jimmy, what about locking up bikes? So what I can tell you is that, at least in the city of Fort Collins, the number one crime that we have is people not locking their bikes appropriately, and they're getting stolen. And often when I am scouring the bike racks at work, I have seen people lock their bikes up atrociously. Can we take a few moments here to show people how to properly lock up their bikes so that it doesn't hopefully get stolen?
Yep. So this is a very basic bike rack here, very similar to what you're going to find as the bike rack at a majority of the places around town here. A fairly common thing that we see people do is exactly this. Put the front wheel or the back wheel in, and they try to lock it up.
Yeah!
Yeah. So a couple things with that. So there you have a cable, and it doesn't stretch. It doesn't fit.
Oh, so Jimmy, I just have to put it through the wheel, right? And then through the rack, and then lock it up. Boom, done, right?
Well, If you like to keep your front wheel only, yes. Unfortunately, you could take the rest of the bike. Somebody just has to get a new front wheel, and they've got your bike.
Okay.
What we do recommend, if you're going to lock your bike up in a high crime area, obviously try and know where you're going. We do recommend a good U-lock. Good heavy steel shackle in combination with a cable could secure a bike like this and not have you worry while you run your errands. So first thing to do is to get the bike in the rack properly. On a rack like this, set your front wheel over the rack and let the rack rest just underneath of the down tube there, fork and down tube.
I would have never thought about that until you just showed me this.
So what's going to happen now, the wheel is nice and secure, the bike is balanced, so it's not going to tip over.
Okay.
But now that gives us room to take this U-lock, run it through the wheel and the frame, and we would take that cable now, run it through the back wheel
and frame,
and those loops go right on. Oops. And voila. That bike is secure. You could try to take this off all you want, it's not going anywhere. You would have to have some pretty heavy duty tools in order to remove this from this rack. And at that point, somebody's going to notice, hey, there's a guy over there with giant bolt cutters or giant sawing on metal.
So the most important thing that I take away from this is to make sure to lock up as much of it as possible.
Absolutely.
As we mentioned earlier, if you only lock the front tire may be the only thing left. If you only lock up the rear tire may be the only thing left. If you only lock up the frame, and I kid you not, it might be the only thing you have left.
Yeah, one of the fairly common things we see too, especially on bikes with quick releases, often the saddle, usually in high traffic areas, college campuses for example, someone will flip the lever and take the saddle. You can get what's called a seat leash, which is a thinner, more size appropriate cable to help secure that. So if you do live or go to a college campus where that's an issue, you can get a special cable for that to help secure it to the bike.
And again, I would absolutely put it through the seat post,
through
the frame. That way you're securing it to both.
Correct. And that basically prevents the seat post from being taken out of the bike. The other option is you can actually change out your seat binder from a quick release to a bolt-on. So somebody would have to have a tool in order to take your saddle. Awesome.
That's really great information. Anything else you think is important for people to think about safety-wise?
Pay attention to your surroundings. That's really the big thing. If you know you're going to go to some place where maybe the bike rack is in the dark, carry an extra lock, have lights, be prepared. That's really the biggest thing for safety. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Sure.
One thing that many of you may not know about me through all of our journeys is that I'm actually also a law enforcement officer here in this community. So I want to take a moment to talk to you a little bit about rules of the road. Things that are important for you to know to not only keep you safe while you're out there actually riding, but as we've addressed, to hopefully keep your bike in your possession. Bikes in the city of Fort Collins and Colorado in particular, and so I do want to preface that if you live in another state, in another city, make sure you check your local ordinances because they may not be exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. But here in Fort Collins, bikes are considered vehicles. So anything that a car is required to do out there, you're required to do on your bike. What do I mean by that? Stopping at stop signs, stopping at red lights, signaling, those are all things that you need to do on your bike. And that not only keeps you safe as a rider, but it lets cars know what you're doing also. Quick hand signals, if you're going to be turning left, you just outstretch your left hand while you're riding to point that you're turning left. I know, surprise, surprise. If you're going to make a right hand turn, you just use a right angle and signal that you're going to be turning right. The last one that's really important is if you're going to be stopping or slowing, you're indicating just flip that hand down, you're indicating that you're going to be stopping. All of those signals not only let cars know what you're doing, but they equally let other bicyclists behind you know what you're doing. A lot of other crashes that we see happen between bikes and cars are when bikes are riding the wrong way down the road. So like we mentioned, if cars have to travel on the right-hand side of the road in a certain direction, make sure you're traveling in that same direction. Because often, if you're coming down the wrong way and a car goes to turn right, you are both going to collide and T-bone. So make sure that you're riding the right way down. Another important thing to know is that you talked about the lights, running lights during the daytime. So it's important to make yourself as visible as possible at all times. However, if you don't want to run your lights during the daytime, it is required that starting at dusk, like your headlights, they get turned on. So in Colorado, a headlight is required and a backlight isn't necessarily required, but a red reflector is. That way you're still visible. I would say high visibility would say get yourself a red rear light. Equally, Colorado surprisingly doesn't have a mandatory helmet law. Don't know why. I don't go anywhere without my noggin being protected, clearly. That football helmet goes everywhere with me. And while it's not required in the state of Colorado, we highly suggest never going out on your bike without one. Another big thing that people don't realize that they need to do in the city of Fort Collins is register their bike. Much like you have to register your car every year, you need to register your bike. Lucky for us, it's a one-time thing that you can either do it at Colorado State University, at the police department, or you can do it at the Fort Collins Police Services Department. And basically how that helps us is it puts down on file your serial number, the make, model, and color of your bike. So if your bike is ever stolen, that information is on file with us. You don't have to remember your registration number. You just have to remember your name, and we can pull that up. The important part about that is the serial number piece. That's the number one thing that we have that links ownership to bikes. And most people don't write down serial numbers for their computers, for their phones, or anything like that. So by registering your bike, it not only helps us, but it helps you recover your bike as well.
Can I throw one thing in?
Absolutely.
Actually, two things. One thing I do recommend to people when they purchase a bike, most everybody has a smartphone at this point that takes pictures, store pictures on the cloud. Take a picture of yourself with the bike, or have somebody take that picture for you, and also flip your bike over and take a picture of the serial number. Store those in the cloud. Hopefully you never need it, but if you do, it's easy to access. The other thing you can do, take an index card, write your name, address, serial number of the bike, throw that in a Ziploc bag, roll it up nice and tight, and drop it down inside of your seat tube on the bike. If your bike gets stolen and somebody files off a serial number, unfortunately I've been down this path before, you can, if your bike is recovered, flip it over, all of your information's there.
Wow, that is a good one that I didn't know. And now I'm going to recommend it to everyone who comes and just be like, hey, do this thing. Thank you for that, Jimmy. Sure. Along with paying attention to traffic control devices, which can be a sign, a light, or anything else, or a cone in a construction zone, it's important to pay attention to dismount zones. Now, there are very few places that exist here in Fort Collins, but they are important because you can get ticketed for not obeying them. Old Town Fort Collins is an area. The Laurie Student Center Plaza on CSU campus is another area. Basically, all it does is it's a high traffic area with a lot of pedestrians, and much like in the car, pedestrians have the right of way to the bicycle as well. So it just requires you to get off your bike, walk it through the dismount zone, and then you can get back on it on the other side. Another thing to consider when you're riding your bike and you're doing some road riding is that in Colorado, all lanes are considered bike lanes. That means that you can take the lane of traffic even if there's an adjacent bike lane next to it if you have to avoid a hazard, a tree branch, a cone, a pothole, or anything like that. It's important though that you signal that you're going to be getting over so that cars know that you're doing that. It's okay also if you signal because you need to make a left-hand turn to go down another road. Really important to remember, but they help save a lot of lives. And for those who are driving in cars and you see a bicyclist, in Colorado we have a mandatory 3 feet minimum that you must keep between you and the outermost part of the car that's facing the bicyclist. So it's not about your car door, it's about that mirror, it's about whatever rack you have. It needs to be at least 3 feet between your vehicle and the car, the bike. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's also important to note that CSU has several different laws than the city of Fort Collins does. So in the city of Fort Collins, you can ride on the sidewalk if that's where you're most comfortable, but do remember that pedestrians have the right of way. On CSU's campus, you cannot ride on the sidewalk. You either need to be in the bike highway or in the bike lanes at all times. And so that's a really important distinguishment that you should make. So overall, I think it's important for you to know that when you're crossing railroad tracks, make sure you do it perpendicular so that your wheels go right over it, you don't get stuck, you don't get thrown off. Cue. And make sure that you ride predictable. Use your hand signals, ride defensively, wear a helmet, and also keep your hands on your handlebars. You never quite know when you're going to need to brake suddenly. Any last takeaways for people to know?
If I had to recommend anything, it'd be a bike helmet. I know personally I would not be here if it was not for a bike helmet. I've had a handful of really bad bike crashes in my time. Helmet saved my life. I know I've got quite a few friends that are in the same situation. Best thing I could tell you is the ABCs are a lot harder the second time around. Don't learn the hard way.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And thank you all again for tuning in for our final episode for our beginner series of Learning with Alisha. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night.